Hey friends, welcome in. This is Exos Heroes Beginner Guide, episode 2. If you haven't seen episode 1, check it out here. Did that work? Anyways, guys, be sure to keep watching the video to the very end so you can get your chance to get FC Bathory, FC Rera, both FC Barakas, FC Brook, and so much more. So hit like and subscribe, or I will curse you to only pull shells with your Fated.
NANI?!
Number doesn't only come out of the ground.
All right, number 10. Godin is he's probably the most surprising person on this list, or rather, instead of a person, I should say hero. But personally, I really like him for a few reasons. One, because he's a defense unit. There's only like 2 or 3 defense units that are rare that are actually worth anything, Glenn being another one. But one of the reasons that I like Godin the most, or Godin the most, because he has a couple things going for him. He has the HP share on his passive. It grants share health to the ally with the lowest maximum health and heals their health by 30% of the caster's current health at the beginning of the round. So that's pretty useful, especially if you have a bunch of weaker people in the backline like some of the other rares that we'll be getting into here in a second. But past that, his A2 is not that great. It's pretty decent if you just want to hit someone real quick for 1 mana. But the reason I like Godin over a lot of the other defense people like Glenn and elsewhere is because of this Iceberg Smash. The Iceberg Smash not only does 350% to 1 damage, it does a freeze effect for 7 turns, which is super useful. So you can basically lock down people and do 350% damage to them. So this creates a little bit more utility to just being a meat shield.
Number 9.
It's time to show what I've really got.
So with Seir, you're kind of asking yourself, why is Seir really that valuable? Well, frankly, she's pretty good at being a nuker early game, and she has counter, and counter is pretty useful when you need to proc additional frost elements, or you're trying to stagger in a little bit of extra damage or finish people off. Past that, she has this increases all allies attack speed by 18% of own attack for 7%, and you can go ahead and book that up more if you need to as well. You got to remember that these rare heroes can be booked using Zest and solar gems and things that you can get around exploration. And then lastly, she does 500% damage to 1 enemy, and it's a burst skill. So if you happen to get her all the way past like 6 stars even, you could basically do a considerable amount of damage with Seir. So Seir is actually pretty useful for an early nuker.
Number 8.
Please concentrate. The battle has just begun.
Next is a hero that's kind of slept on in my opinion. Not only does Iris offer you a cleanse, which comes in clutch pretty often in the campaign, but she offers you a 11% of max HP barrier for 12 turns, and you can click someone, remove a stat effect from all enemies, and when the person that you click gains 1 mana. So not only is she gaining mana from being a light rare hero, she's also gaining mana to a specific person through the gain 1 mana in her A2. And then lastly, she has 350% damage to 1 enemy, which isn't the best skill in the world, but hey, it comes in clutch sometimes.
Number 7.
Is not your skin. Want to see for yourself?
Mana Absorber as a passive isn't really that great, but sometimes there's a buff on the opposing side that's worth taking away. But most of the time, the bosses and things that you're worried about that you need damage over time for a considerable amount of time for, they're gonna have status effect immunity anyways, so it's not gonna remove buffs and things like that. But what really gets Carlos into this tier list right now is his A3. It deals 119 damage to all enemies and burns targets, dealing 41% of damage every turn for 4 turns. Now, if you don't want to wait till a 5 mana, he offers you a considerably less expensive option at 0 mana, deals 17% of your damage to all enemies and burns them for 2 turns. So with 0 mana, you can proc 3 Fire Guardian Stones against the entire enemy hero squad.
Number 6.
Are you ready to die?
So Weiler's a little bit worse than Carlos when it comes to breaking guard stones because his A3 here just damages all enemies. It doesn't apply a dot to all enemies. And his A2 is pretty useless, increasing his own dodge. But I think the difference between the increased damage and the final hit on top of just having a little bit higher attack in general makes him a little bit more useful across more stages than Carlos does. And Carlos is basically exclusively if you need to proc a lot of fire. Weiler, you can find a reason to put into a couple of more lineups, so he kind of gets the slight edge, but when it comes to Guardian Stone proc, Carlos is well superior to Weiler. But overall, I think Weiler's slightly better.
Number 5.
Get ready. This is the power of justice.
Now we're getting into the actually good 0 mana ones. Colin is a machine type. Machine is actually one of the hardest classes to do the dailies on. So being machine attacker means that he can get mana pretty quickly, which allows him to do is deal 350% to one enemy quite often. So he can do somewhat of a nuke skill if needed. He has counter, so he's going to be proccing an additional machines on people that hit him. And then his A3 does 34% damage to all enemies. So I actually think that compared to Carlos, who does next to no damage for the majority of the time that you use him, Colin can be thrown into quite a few different lineups, and he still offers you quite a bit amount of machine proc.
Number 4.
To deny brutalism. I shall purge you of your sins.
Next is Wilkes. I really like Wilkes quite a bit. Not only is she darkness, chaos, and magical, but she offers you quite a bit of utility. She has mana absorb, which, as I said earlier, isn't my favorite passive, but her A3 does 17% to all and corrodes enemies, dealing 10% damage every turn for 2 turns. So essentially she does what Carlos does in dark, which is a little bit more valuable. But what really sets Wilkes separate from Carlos and the others is her A2. On turns where she's not needing to proc, you can do increase all allies attack by 17% of your own attack for 7 turns. And her attack isn't terrible, but it's also not that great. So 17% across all of your nukers and things like that are going to be doing 800%, 500%, or mainly doing critical damage. Wilkes is really going to add a ton of utility there and really a lot of extra burst for the rest of your team. So I like Wilkes.
Number 3.
You can dodge this.
So I'm kind of biased towards Iden. Personally, I think he is the coolest hero in the entire game. I just love his appeal. I love all of his skills, and I think he finds a lot of use. So being in nature is pretty useful. Chaos can be played in a couple of comps as well. But final hit, as I said earlier, is super useful. And then he also offers you 350% piercing damage to one enemy. So not only does he have a semi-burst, but it also pierces through shields, which the piercing is a little overrated at times, but it's still useful. And it's mana 4 instead of mana 5 of a couple other people's burst skills. Now, what really you bring Iden to the table for is his A3, which is similar to Colin and Weiler, and he deals 34% damage to all enemies. So overall, I think Iden is a really balanced and well-tooled hero that you're going to bring on all of the nature days and can be used throughout the entire campaign.
Number 2.
I told you to mine. You're dead.
Let's get into the 2 true beasts that make up the rare. Morris, though short, packs quite a bit of punch. Not only is he a machine attack, he has counter. So he's going to be building up mana quite often, being an attack type, because every time he attacks, he gets mana. He's going to be countering, which also gives him mana. His A2 is something you're not going to do a ton because he's so useful, but he increases all allies attack by 18% of his own attack for 7 turns. So that's pretty useful, but most of the time you're using him for his A3, Blacksmith's Hammer. Now, not only is it a burst skill that has 5 required mana, but it does 700% damage to one enemy. So Morris is definitely up there in terms of rares that you might want to consider taking to 6 stars. Do you want an account with FC Rera? Yeah, she's pretty rare, huh? What about if you could get FC Bathory? Or maybe even FC Anna? And maybe that account also has FC Baraka and FC Brook. This account could be yours because we're giving up this account is part of a giveaway. We're looking to get up to 100 subscribers. If we can get up to 100 subscribers, we will give this away. To enter into our contest, all you have to do is subscribe to this channel, and in the comments put which hero you want to see next get a fake ore. And so that means you can enter into our event multiple times. So go ahead and like, subscribe, and push it on to your friends and get them to like and subscribe so they can enter as well. And one of you lucky people will be getting this account. Until 100 subscribers, we will be playing this account every single day to make sure that you can get the most out of it.
Number 1.
Love, hope, dreams, and courage.
Now, it's no secret that Kaya is incredibly strong. A lot of people consider Anastasia to be the best healer in the game, but Kaya to me kind of takes a cake. Anastasia may be better than Kaya when it comes to healing in something like PvP, but Kaya in herself can actually be quite useful in PvP, and she offers first aid like Anastasia does. But the main difference between Anastasia and Kaya is that instead of having a burst skill, which Anastasia does really well, she can do a ton of damage. Her A2 is on a low mana count at 3 and deals 20% of Kaya's maximum HP and cleanses all debuffs. So that's incredibly useful for something like Dragon. Kaya is definitely a hero you want to rush to 6 stars and maybe one of the priority heroes to get to 6 stars in the entire game. Her healing can be insane, and when skilled up, she offers you a tremendous amount of support. Compared to Anastasia, who even has the dragon buffs, Kaya's even better. Consider using her in all of your dragon runs. Kaya is simply amazing. Well, friends, that'll do it for this episode of Beginner's Guide. If you liked this video, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe even hit that notification bell. Until next time, keep spreading the good vibes.